now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Royanne Bell, and I'm the project manager for Project Care, which is one of the many programs facilitated by the Starkville City Hall School District focused on addressing child abuse prevention and awareness. And on behalf of the Starkville School District and the Discovery Center, we'd like to thank you for joining us tonight for one of the many and various events that we plan for this month of April. And as you know, April has been designated National Child Abuse Prevention Month all across the United States. And all across the United States, a light is being shined on this very important issue. And in light of that, the Discovery Center and our presenter would like to help us understand how we can help our clients and ourselves turn storm clouds into blue skies. And so we're excited to hear from our presenters. So with no further ado, at this time, we'll turn this over to Ms. Elizabeth Williams to introduce our presenter for tonight.
Hi, everybody. I'm Elizabeth Williams. I'm also at the Discovery Center with Project Peace. I'm very excited to introduce Emily and have her here with us tonight. Just a little bit about Emily. She is a licensed professional counselor supervisor and a registered play therapist supervisor. And then also she owns her own therapy business that's here in town in Starkville, Upside Down Therapy. She received her master's degree in marriage and family counseling from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas. And also Emily is she's married and she has 2 daughters. She specializes in anxiety-related issues, life change, grief, divorce, and parenting. And I think she's going to just have a wealth of information tonight. We're just so excited to have you, Emily. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
All right. Okay. All right, Emily. So welcome, Emily. You can go ahead and get started. I'll get this up.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Thanks for having me. I was thinking about the storm clouds and turning those to blue skies and how our weather has been over the last few months and how appropriate it is to talk about how our lives can compare to one day it's maybe sunny and clear skies and things are going good. And the next day things can happen. And it's kind of like our lives have storm clouds that just pop up. Sometimes they've been building and things happen, whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, whether you work with kids on a daily basis or grandparents. There's so many different ways that this, we're going to talk about the BL.U method and how that can be used with different people. We can go ahead and go to the next. Okay, so storm clouds. Storm clouds can be many different things in our lives. So I've made a list of things here. We're going to talk in detail about a few, but storm clouds can pop up, like I said, and be something related to stress. It can be something ongoing. It can be something that we deal with every now and then. When you look at stress, and there's different types of stress. So on the next slide, we're going to look at, okay, so let's think about our lives on a daily basis and the different types of stress that we deal with and the things that happen, things that go on. Acute stress. So that can be a job, that could be parenting, that could be simple as waking up and being headed to carry your kids to school and get a flat tire or run out of gas or running late. That can be short-term things that happen, but they can be very, very stressful. And as a parent or as a teacher, if you're dealing with that stress and then something happens with your child or your child does something and you're already dealing with stress, it makes it hard for you to be able to respond or be able to handle more stress added to the stress you already have. Chronic stress, when I thought of this, it says feels never ending. I thought of COVID. And I thought back to like quarantine and the stress that families were under. Parents who maybe were having to work from home, but also kind of help their kids with school, parents who maybe lost their jobs or their jobs changed, finances. This is something that can be ongoing. It could be illness. It could be somebody in your family who is sick and you're helping with them, or that you yourself are dealing with. So chronic stress can be one that feels like it's never going to end. And then episodic acute stress, regular, reoccurring. It could be getting up every day and going to a job that's very stressful. It could be students taking tests, students who are struggling, students who feel like school's not their favorite place to be. So it could be something that we face and that we know that we have to do, but it's reoccurring, it's regular. But then there's also good stress. And so we forget that a lot of times we think of stress, we think stress is always bad, but there can even be good stress. And even with good stress, it can be things that can cause us to kind of be edgy or be anxious. Going on a trip, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of planning and it's a lot of things that parents have to take care of and things they have to do, or preparing for something that you're excited about, a child's birthday party. But then if something doesn't go right or something happens, then it can cause a lot of stress and a lot of different emotions for parents or kids. The other type of stress I want to focus on for a minute on the next slide is ACEs. And I'm sure you've probably heard of this before. This is something that the CDC came out with to help us be able to understand, treat, predict, and prevent mental and physical illnesses. If you look to this little chart on the right side, it has, like at the bottom, it talks about, it shows the more ACEs that a child has, the higher the chances as an adult they have to have physical illnesses that come up, or emotional and mental illnesses. So the things on the left are the kind of the list that the CDC came up with, some of the major stressors that children face. And as adults, if there's ways for us to be able to kind of help with some of those and be able to prevent those, then that's going to increase a child's life as they get older and an adult to be less sick, have less health problems, less emotional mental illness. So that's one of the reasons that this is the things we're going to be talking about are important to not just children, but also adults, because you can go online and there's actually you can just Google and there's actually a little test that you can take. And so even as an adult, you can take the test and you can see how many of these ACEs that you may have experienced when you were a child. And it kind of goes through and asks you a couple of different questions, or you can even do it. And if you are a parent or a teacher, just kind of knowing kind of how this can affect children and how this can affect them long term. So on the next slide, trauma. So the thing about ACEs is that a lot of times is we kind of overlook trauma, and that trauma is something that kids are going to face, not just as children because of these ACEs that were listed there, but also as an adult. I like to think of it as kind of like our vision, having 20/20 vision. Trauma makes it where we don't have 20/20 vision. And so it's kind of like makes it harder to deal with things, makes it harder to cope. Parents who have had trauma as a child or trauma that they've dealt with, it makes it harder for them to maybe know the best ways to parent. It makes it harder for them to be tolerable. And we'll talk about later about our level of tolerance. Teachers, if teachers have had some trauma, then something could happen in the classroom or something could happen with an administrator that triggers that trauma and makes it harder for them to be able to be the best teacher they can be. So being able to recognize whether it's the parent or whether it's the child, if trauma has taken place, and how to be able to do certain things to be able to offset or to help with that trauma. The next slide. Okay, so how do we stand up for our children? I noticed around town, many different places. There were banners up, there were the blue pinwheels, there were the billboards talking about standing up for our children, how this month, the Child Abuse Prevention Month, how we can stand up for our children. Well, there are many different ways. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of dive into what I call the B.L.U.E method and talk about different ways to stand up for our children. But, and you go to the next slide. But the biggest part of standing up for our children is going to start with us. It's going to start with us as parents, it's going to start with us as adults, start with us as teachers. So this book is called ScreamFree Parenting. A friend of mine introduced me to it many years ago. And she said, I feel like I'm always screaming at my kids. I try to ask them nicely, or I try to get them to do something, and then they don't listen. And so it ends up in this screaming match. And she said, so I found this book, and she said it was very helpful because it had a very different perspective than a lot of parenting books. In the first chapter, the first sentence says, the greatest thing that you can do for your kids is learn to focus on yourself. And the whole book kind of talks about how parents can evaluate themselves and look at themselves and change how they do things, how they process things, how they perceive things, how they communicate things, to be able to help their children. Another part of the book, it talks about putting on your own oxygen mask, and that you got to do that first. And if you've ever been on a plane and you've gone somewhere, and the stewardess will get up there and she'll start talking about, what to do in case of emergency, or case, and she'll show you the little mask that you put on. And they always say for the parent to put it, if the parent is traveling with children, for the parent to put it on first. When I first heard that, I didn't understand. I was like, well, why wouldn't a parent put on their kids first? We want to make sure our kids are okay. But then it was explained to me by another friend that if I were on the plane with my kids, and if I put their mask on, I could pass out before I could get their mask on. So that I needed to put my mask on first so that I wouldn't pass out, so that way I could put theirs on. And the book, it kind of goes into that we've got to take care of ourselves first. We've got to make sure that we are taking care of how we handle things, how we handle stress, so that when our kids get stressed, because kids get stressed too, and kids, they do certain things and it upsets parents, and so that we know how to handle it, or we can handle it in a better way. And then another part of the book, it talks about you cannot take care of your family unless you first tend yourself. And so I want to talk about that and talk about ways that we can help ourselves, but also when the things that I'm going to show you are things that you can also use with students, you can use with your children, and it goes both ways. It's things that kind of apply to both. So let's dive into the B.L.U.E method. Okay, so we're going to talk about 4 different things here. The first one is breathing. And I'm going to go into detail in just a minute and talk about how important breathing is. Breathing, a lot of times is misunderstood. It's like, I think we talk about it or heard it so much that sometimes it gets minimized, and people are just like, oh yeah, I breathe every day, but we don't really talk about it. So I'm going to go into detail about different things that, information to know, but different things that you can do, like for yourself and for your kids. And then we're going to talk about listening to our bodies and being able to recognize when we're getting frustrated, the level of frustration, what our body's telling us. And then we're going to look at understanding feelings. And I've got some couple of different examples of being able to know how to help yourself with your feelings and things that are going on, but also being able to communicate with your children and being able to teach them how to recognize their feelings or communicate their feelings. And the last one is kind of it's going to be kind of several different things. We're going to evaluate, educate, exercise. I've got several different tools that I'm going to give you and share with you to kind of be able to help be a better parent, a better teacher, better grandparent, whatever you are, to be able to help work with kids and be able to know that you are the best that you can be for them. Okay, so let's look at breathing. Okay, so there was an article, The Healing Power of Proper Breathing. And what was funny is it was put out around the time that the spring that COVID hit. And so I thought, well, that was very appropriate that it came out right around the time that we were quarantined and we were dealing with a lot of stress. The thing that the doctor said is that the study showed that breathing, they said that most of us, we don't know how to breathe. We think we know how to breathe. Okay. So there's passive breathing versus intentional breathing. And so we breathe on a daily basis. We wake up breathing, we go to sleep at night, we breathe while we're sleeping. So we think, okay, well, I'm breathing. But it was saying that people don't take time to properly breathe, and that proper breathing can help with our heart rate. It can actually decrease high blood pressure, that our bodies, because it relies on oxygen, that it's important to take time to be able to know and focus on breathing. And so one of the things that it said to do, like I said, you can even do this once or twice a day, is to take short inhale through your nose, and then you count to 5, and then a long exhale through your nose. So I'm going to kind of show you. So you're going to short inhale. And it said just sitting and doing that will decrease your high blood pressure by 10 or 15 points. And that's what the study showed, is that doctors had found that it was important for Americans to focus on adequate breathing, because we're so busy, we're rushing, we're going here, we're trying to get to this place, we're trying not to be late, we're trying to get kids here, kids picked up, and that because we're so busy and going, that we don't take time to just sit and focus on our breathing. And so let me give you a couple of fun things that can be done with kids. And these can be done with students. These can be done with your own children. Let me tell you a quick story. So when I have 2 daughters, and when my oldest one was about 5 and my youngest one was about 2, we were in Walmart. And of course, when you're in Walmart, what do 2-year-olds a lot of times do? They want things, and when they don't get them, they want to throw a fit and they want to cry. And I don't remember what my youngest one, like what happened or what she wanted or what upset her, but she was in that little part, like the buggy where you push, and she got really upset about something, and she was crying. And as a parent, I was thinking, okay, I've got to get the rest of these groceries, I need to get checked out, got to get here, got to get there. I really don't, her crying and stuff. I don't have time to do this right now. And so I was getting frustrated. And my other daughter, who was 5, walked up to her and said, Riley, she said, breathe. She said, breathe with me. Breathe in and breathe out. And it was the cutest thing. But her sister had picked up at 5 years old, had already picked up on breathing, and that breathing helped you calm down. And so she did it for a few minutes, and it was the craziest thing, because I was like, wow, a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old right here in Walmart are breathing, and it's helping them calm down. And she helped her sister calm down. And I've always, told that story to people that even little kids, they can learn breathing. You can teach it to them. You can talk to them about it. And if they can learn that at an early age, then as they get older and stressful or difficult things come to them, they can use that during those times. I've had many clients come back and tell stories about being at school or being in a stressful situation or things happening, and how they thought about, okay, let me breathe. And they would stop and they would take, some deep breaths, and they would say, that calmed me down. That helped me not be so upset. And so that's why I feel like it's important for us not to just breathe ourselves, but to teach our kids how to breathe. So we got the next one. And this is one of my favorites. So I like to, with kids, I'll have them like hold their mug like they have a cup of hot chocolate. And I've also done it where you do like a bowl, like you have soup. And I have them pretend like they're holding a cup of hot chocolate. And I have them like to breathe in and smell the chocolate. And we'll talk about like maybe what the chocolate smells like or what their favorite thing about chocolate is. I'll have them breathe in. And then we're going to talk about like we're going to blow out like we're cooling off the hot chocolate. So we're going to. And then we'll do that like for 5 or 6 times, maybe more. And then we'll do the one with the soup. So those are just fun little simple things that can be done again with students. That can be done with your children. They can be like taught simple things like that as far as breathing. And then when they're in a stressful situation or they're in a situation, you can remind them, where's your hot chocolate? Take your hot chocolate. Let's breathe in our hot chocolate. Okay, let's cool it off. So that's one. Another one I like to do is called rainbow breathing. And this can be done. It can be done on paper. It could be done with, you could even do it with finger paint, or you could do it with paints. You could do it with crayons. You could do it. I've used it in this, like with, when I've done outdoor sessions, I've done it like outdoors, and I'll have them to like trace like a rainbow. And then we'll breathe in and then we'll breathe out and then have them go back and forth. And again, like I said, this you could be creative with, and you could do it many different ways. So I recently moved back to Starkville. I was here. I grew up in this area, moved off, then moved back, then moved off for 15 years. And while I was in Central Mississippi, I worked with several different schools, or got to work with several different schools there. And one of the schools actually had some teachers who had done some mindfulness training, and they actually started incorporating in their classrooms mindfulness and like deep breathing, different things like that. During their circle time or during their time in the morning when they would meet with their students, they would incorporate like mindfulness or deep breathing or different kind of techniques that they had learned. And then even throughout the day, if they were doing something, if it was test taking, they would have them do some deep breathing before they started doing some of their work, or before they started doing something that was like really, really stressful or important. But it was really interesting to see how they had implemented that in their curriculum. And it wasn't something like necessarily that they had been told to do or had been given. They had just themselves had decided, okay, this is something that we think is important to teach our students. And so they had done that, and it made a big difference in their kids. And if I ever work with any of their kids, some of these things their kids already knew. And so we start talking about breathing or mindfulness or self-regulation type things. Their kids would already be like, they're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. And they would be able to explain it or be able to demonstrate it or show it to me. And so these are things, again, that you can teach kids, you can teach your students that, and then another one, I think I put the next one should be the pinwheel. So I've saw the pinwheels around town and love those. And this is one that I've used with kids too, is being able to just have them to take a pinwheel, again, blow in, blow out. And they love it because it gives them something like a visual of seeing like what happens when they breathe out and being able to blow the pinwheel. And then another one I didn't put this on the PowerPoint, but I'm going to show y'all, is bubbles. I like to use bubbles with kids when breathing, because a lot of times what kids do when they first get the bubbles, they get them and they go, okay. And you see how like the bubbles come out, and sometimes they're like really small or they're not very big. And so I like to get them to really focus on taking the bubbles, breathing in, and very slowly breathing out. And us trying to see if the bubbles are bigger when you blow slower, or how slow that we can, blow, and how big we can make them. And so they would breathe in. And then I'd say, okay, well, let's try it even slower. And so we even catch them and blow them again. And so that gives them a chance to kind of work on breathing. Because again, a lot of times they just want to breathe really fast, and they're not aware of their breathing. And so then we'll talk about how that kind of helps us when we're stressful, or stressed out, or upset, or angry, or mad, and different ways they can use breathing. So breathing is, like I said, we a lot of times just think, okay, we breathe, and we've heard about breathing, and we talk about when you get mad, breathe. But a lot of times I notice that people, like even kids, sometimes unless they're reminded, they forget, oh, this is good for me. This is something that helps me. It helps my brain. It helps me be able to think more clearly. It helps me be able to calm down. It helps me be able to handle stressful situations. Okay. So we're going to move on from breathing to listening to our bodies. Stress affects our bodies in many, many different ways. And the chemicals that are released. And if you think about like what happens when a child is stressed or when an adult is stressed, how they're going to either fight, they're going to either run, or they're going to either freeze. And so helping you to recognize like what's going on with your body, because sometimes our body lets us know that we're stressed before we realize that we're dealing with stress. So a lot of times what I'll have people to do is to really to talk about or look at, hey, what do you feel when you feel mad? What is your body feeling? What do you feel when you're feeling anxious or you're feeling stressed? And so we'll talk about what their body does, because like I said, their body is communicating to us that something is going on. Okay, so the next slide Okay, so I like this little chart, and I know it's gonna be hard to see, but in the chart, and I like to use this with kids when I'm having them like to recognize like what level of anger they're feeling, because it breaks down like what your body's feeling, but also what your mind's feeling, or what's going on with your mind. And this is good for parents because being able to know what level and where you are with your kids, because your kids are going to push your buttons. They're going to do things that are going to frustrate you. They're going to do things that are going to be feel overwhelming. But knowing kind of where you are on this chart can help you be able to step away and know what you need to do. And know how you need to handle what your body's telling you, and know how you need to handle stressful situations or handle situations so you don't get to the top, the furious, because you've got all these different steps or layers that could be going on. And so being able to say, okay, where am I? And if you're at that furious, I've had it before where I've worked with some parents, and like one parent would have to tell the other parent, okay, I'm at 10, I need to go outside and take a break. Tag, you're it. And they recognized, okay, I'm not in a position right now where I need to be handling this situation. Or even as a teacher, if you notice that like a student is pushing, like has done something or said something that's kind of frustrating you, maybe you need to take a break, or maybe you need to step away from the situation or let somebody else kind of handle it. Being able to recognize where you are, which of this on this ladder, where is your frustration? Where is your anger? What's going on for you? A lot of times we group mad together and we just put like mad in one ball, but it can be different for different people. And in a little bit, we'll talk about tolerance. And this kind of plays into kind of how tolerable you may be in a situation, and knowing kind of where your level of tolerance is at that moment, especially when you're dealing with something maybe with your child. And if it's the time that you need to like table that and deal with it at a different time. For myself, one of the things I know is that when I'm tired, I don't handle situations as well. For my husband, it's when he's hungry. If you heard of hangry, he gets hangry. And so when he's hungry, that's not the time to maybe deal with difficult situations or stressful type stuff. And so if it's at night and I'm sleepy and I'm tired, I'm like, maybe we need to talk about this tomorrow, or let me get some sleep. Or if I notice that I've had where I've lost sleep and I didn't sleep good the night before. So I'll know, okay, today I'm going to be a little bit like harder to handle things. So I need to be aware of what's going on with my body and with me, and how I need to handle certain situations, because I'm not feeling my 100%. I'm not feeling my best me. So, okay, so the next slide. Okay, so a lot of times when parents will bring kids to me, or they have kids that we to work with, they'll talk about behavior. A lot of times we hear about behavior, but the thing about behavior, as this little quote says, is underneath the behavior, there's feelings, and underneath the feelings, there's a need. And so a lot of times I like to be able to look beyond what like the behavior is, and not just say, okay, well, this behavior and this is what's going on. I like to be able to figure out kind of like what's going on, if this is the behavior, what is the child feeling, and then what is their need? Or if it's an adult, as a parent, okay, if this is the parent's behavior, what are their feeling and what are their needs? And so try to be able to break it down. And so we're going to talk about understanding our feelings, because if we can break it down and look more into our feelings and our needs, this is going to help us with our frustrations, with our anger, being able to handle, being able to deal with the storm clouds, being able to deal with the things that come our way. So let's look more into feelings. Okay, so I've mentioned this a couple of times, the window of tolerance. Okay, so we have, and I'm going to use this kind of a little, if y'all see this illustration. Okay, this is just something. Okay, I saw this from a conference one time, and I liked how this presenter, how he laid out window of tolerance. Okay, so we have our level of tolerance. Sometimes this is big, sometimes this is little, based on kind of maybe what's happened in our day, maybe based on what's happened in our life. As you notice on this, it says trauma can affect tolerance. So when someone's been through trauma, it can decrease their level of tolerance. And so they can be very frustrated very easily, maybe where somebody who maybe has not, maybe have more tolerance. And we either go to being really angry or being frustrated or, could be aggressive, to down here with withdrawing, cutting ourselves off, being passive, moving away from the situation. Both of these two, of course, are unhealthy ways to handle when stress comes. So, but we got to look at what is our window of tolerance and how do we increase that? Because the more tolerance we have, the better we're going to be able to handle situations, especially with our children or students. So if we have a lot of tolerance when they do something like kids do, because kids are kids, then we're going to be more patient. We're going to be more understanding. We're going to be able to think, okay, this is a kid. But if our tolerance is very little, we're going to be more likely to get angry, agitated, frustrated, or to completely just cut them off, withdraw from them, not interact. So there's based on our tolerance, there's different things that will happen. Okay. So this is why I want us to talk about understanding our feelings, is because knowing kind of what's going on with us and knowing what we're feeling. Okay. So a couple of examples. So if I wake up late and I'm rushing around trying to get ready and trying to get my daughter to school and trying to get there on time and not get a ticket and not getting, her tardy. So I'm going to be more stressed out. My window of tolerance is already going to be it's going to be smaller. And so then if something does happen, we have a flat tire, or if she says something to me, here's a perfect example. One time this actually happened and we got in the car and I was stressed out and she said, and I said something to her and she said, I don't know why you're saying this to me. She said, I was in the car waiting on you. She said, I was here, I was ready, I was waiting, but I was frustrated because I myself, but what was I doing? I was taking it out on her. And she called me on it and she said, I was here, I was ready. And so I was like, okay, you're right. I said, this is about me. So, okay. And so my window of tolerance when something like that happens is going to be smaller. And say say I wake up and I'm on time and things are going good and we're getting there, that I'm going to be happier. I'm going to be more jovial. I'm going to be more talkative. I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to be, encouraging her or saying nice things to her. I'm not going to be fussing her. So how our window of tolerance is going to affect how we interact with our children or our students. The same with if a teacher comes to school, maybe they're having a tough day or something's happened at home that morning, their window of tolerance to their students is going to be less, and they're going to be less likely to overlook some of the things maybe their students do or say. And so our window of tolerance has to do with what we're dealing with. And so being able to handle our emotions. Okay, so the next slide. Okay, we can go, this is kind of another breakdown, but it kind of breaks down kind of how our body responds in these different, whether you're upset or you're in the window of tolerance or whether you're withdrawing. We go to the next one. Okay, so being able to increase or make your window of tolerance bigger has to do with being able to work through what you're feeling and what's going on and what the needs are there for you. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go from start to finish using the same example I use. So say that I'm running late and I'm like rushing around. What am I feeling? I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling like that I'm not going to be able to get there on time. I'm going to be late getting to work, be late getting my daughter to school. So I'm going to be frazzled, stressed, anxious. Okay. And so where do I feel it in my body? I'm going to probably feel it like in my stomach. I'm going to maybe feel it in my head, may get flushed. There's a lot of things that may go on with my body. And so realizing, okay, this is what's going on. Okay. So what if it could talk to me? What would it say? Okay. It would probably say, you're stressed right now. Take a deep breath, slow down. It's going to be okay. And then the next one says, what might this be teaching me? Okay. Well, it might be teaching me that I needed to maybe get more sleep, or maybe I need to set my alarm to get up earlier, or maybe there was something that happened that I needed to do differently the next time. Okay. Then it says, what do I do right now? Well, I can't fix what I did in the past. I can't go back and go set the alarm back, or say I need to go a bit earlier. But in that moment, what can I do? Okay. I can breathe. I can take a deep breath, say, okay, it's going to be okay. You know, people go to school late all the time. People get to work. I can do this. Problem solve, trying to think through. Okay, my body's telling me right now that I just need to relax. Okay, and then the next one says, what step can I take to meet my need? Okay, and it may be being able to, again, deep breathe, or just being able to say it's going to be okay. Being able to be honest with, okay, this is something I needed to do differently. What can I do differently next time? So working through these different I know this sounds kind of like a lot, but working through these different thoughts and different things can help our feelings and help us. So if your child does something, like kids will do, they know how to push, like it's like they know how to push our buttons. They know certain things to say, certain things to do. Okay. And so, you know, maybe they say something. And so what are you feeling? Maybe you disrespect it. Okay. And then again, where are you feeling it? Well, maybe in my head, maybe my face is like, oh, I'm about to explode. If it could talk to you, what would it say? You know, and that's where you guys say, well, maybe it would say they're not meant to be disrespectful, or maybe there's something more going on with them, why they're saying this. And then you can, you know, what is this teaching me? You know, what can I do right now? And so walking through the different things to help us as adults to be able, a lot of times what I see with people is they want kids to be able to do this. And this is, of course, something I like to teach kids, and it's a great thing to teach kids, but a lot of times we have to model it too, or model it first, because it goes back to the, they learn from what we do, not necessarily what we say. And so if we're doing it, we can be saying it, but if we're doing it and we're showing them, okay, this is how we're working through things, then they're going to pick up on that. Okay, the next slide. Okay, so here's why this is important to understand our feelings and what's going on with us, is because what brain development has shown is that kids mirror what we're feeling. So going back to the morning that I was ran late, was kind of frazzled, and was taking out my daughter, and she was like, it's not my fault. Well, what kind of mood was she in? What kind of mood was I taking her to school in? She was not her mood changed from being happy and fine to being frazzled as well. She was mirroring what I was feeling. She was picking up on my energy, my feelings, what was going on with me. Our kids, our students, when they mirror what we feel, and they will pick up on, okay, are you angry? Are you stressed? Are you frustrated? And then if you start interacting with them that way, they will mirror back exactly what you're feeling. And it happens both ways. So if kids are upset about something, or they're mad, they didn't get their way, or they want something, or they get frustrated, and then we pick up on their feelings. Because as a parent, we like it when our kids are happy. If something good happens to our kids, how do we feel? We feel happy. We'll feel proud. We feel encouraged. You know, when something like when they get maybe make a good grade on a test, or they get chosen for something, or they get a home run, we feel those positive feelings. But we also feel their negative feelings. But they feel our negative feelings too. So being able to know that they're feeling what we're feeling. And so being able to recognize our feelings, and being able to okay, are they responding this way to me because I'm responding this way? Or how can I respond differently? If they're responding this, if they had something that's happened and they're upset, is me mirroring what they're feeling going to help them? Because then you're going to end up just arguing back and forth, or mad at each other. And it's going to escalate out of control. But if you can neutralize kind of what you're feeling, and be able to recognize, okay, they're going through something right now. They're furious on this anger chart. So how can I be calm and be able to interact with them so that I don't end up at the same level and we both be furious? Okay. All right. So that's feelings, understanding feelings. So let's move on to evaluation. So blue sky thinking is a business term. And it's what businesses use to encourage their employees to think outside the box, and to be creative, and to find new innovative ways to do things, or maybe marketing or selling things, or, you know, coming up with things. Well, as parents, do we think, and teachers, do we think outside the box? You know, how willing are we to do? A lot of times what I found, and I'm just as guilty, is that I parent like my parents parented. And that parents will say, well, this is how my parents did it, or this is how I was raised. Or we do things exactly how we've always done them. And so sometimes we have to look at different ways and think outside the box and kind of say, okay, what can I do differently? How can I change up what I'm doing? Especially if you notice, and I hear this with teenagers a lot, that it tends like the parents and the kids, they are just all the time fighting and arguing. And so I'm like, okay, if what you're doing is not working, it's only leading to more arguments and more fights and more frustration. So what can we do differently? So in the next section, the E's, I'm going to give you 3 different things we're going to talk about. Okay. So the first one is going to be, and you can go to the edge to evaluate. Okay. So asking yourself, what more can I do as a parent or a teacher to support my children, my students? Okay. So goes back to the, what can I do? How can I change things? A lot of times I have parents, like they'll say, well, how can we change them? How can we change my child? Can you fix them? Can you do this? And a lot of times it's a partnership. It's working together. It's both parents trying to do things differently, children trying to do things differently. And by looking at, okay, what can I do? How can you yourself study, research, learn? There's so many different resources out there and better ways to do things, different ways to do things. And every kid is different. I have 2 kids. Both of them are complete opposites as far as their personality. They learn differently. They approach things differently. We had to discipline them differently because we couldn't discipline them the same way because their personalities are so different. And so being able to think, okay, how can I do this differently? What does my child need, or what does my students need? And am I emotionally equipped to handle the stress? And can I model healthy ways to handle stress? Because if, as a parent, you have a hard time dealing with stress, because let's be real, we live in a stressful world. Life is stressful. And every day there's demands, there's things that people are asking of us, there's things that we expect of ourselves, there's things that we want to be able to accomplish, and we are going from place to place and trying to take care of different things. So life can be stressful. So trying to be able to know, can we handle these things so that our kids see us and being able to deal with life stresses? Okay, and the next one is exercise. And this is like putting things into practice. Okay, so we're going to talk about different things that you can put into practice for yourself and with your kids to be able to help them handle stress. It's the next. Okay, so earlier I showed you the ACEs that that came from the CDC. Well, I found this off from Psychology Day, and I really liked it because sometimes I look at the ACEs and I see how that could be discouraging for a parent. Because say if they look at it and they're like, well, my kid already has 2 or 3 of these, they've already been through this and they've already been through this, they've been through this. Well, they've already got 3 of these, that already means that they're, there's going to be this and this is going to happen. But I like this counter ACEs because it talks about the things that you can do to offset maybe some of the stressors that kids have faced. And if you look at the first 2, liking school and teachers who care, they put that first over parents and over caregivers and over friends. So I think that, if you look at these different things, these are things that parents, teachers can implement with kids and know that these are beneficial and helpful. Having a predictable home routine, having a caregiver they feel safe with, that they can go to them with stuff and not worry about them blowing up or getting too angry or frustrated and things happening. So these are all really great things that can help parents, teachers be able to implement or try to work towards doing to be able to help with kids handling stress and being able to help with them not having the effects of ACEs. Okay. So again, evaluate yourself as a parent, how tolerable am I? Where is my level of tolerance like we had on the house while ago? Do I have a short fuse? Is that something that I need to increase my level of tolerance and work on that? Are my expectations for my children to regulate their emotions unrealistic? A lot of times parents will think that kids, they want them to be able to calm down and be able to, but sometimes we're going to talk about in a minute, how realistic is that? And at what level will kids, can we start working on that? Am I equipped to teach my kids the variety of ways to regulate their emotions? And most parents would probably say no. They would say, well, I'm not really, that's not something that I'm good at doing. That's something I need your help with. And so we'll work on different ways to be able to help their kids regulate. Okay, so the next. Okay, so I love this slide. And this, if you look at, okay, so if you think about the first part of the child's brain that develops, okay, their motors, they're walking, they're crawling, when they start talking and things like that. Well, the second is the limbic part of the brain, and that's where emotions are, okay? So a lot of times we're asking things of kids, or we wanting kids to do things that their brain may not be quite developed to do yet. Now, I'm not saying we can't teach them, because we definitely can start teaching them how to communicate their emotions, how to regulate their emotions, how to breathe, how to do different things to kind of know what to do when they're feeling some of these emotions. But being able to do all of it like as a kid perfectly, it's probably unrealistic. As they're getting older, they'll get to learn to master that and be able to do that more. Okay, so it says here that the limbic brain is present at birth, but teenagers undergo major changes in their limbic system at the onset of puberty. So you think of teenagers and their emotions and the things that they deal with as far as hormones, and they're getting mad or getting upset or getting sad. That's taking place during that time. So the brain is not completely developed. Okay, this is what emerging science is. It's not developed until 25. And so we're a lot of times asking kids or expecting kids to be able to do things at 5, 6, 10, 12, that maybe their brains aren't quite ready to. We can start teaching it and we can start implementing it so that by the time they're 25, they know how to handle it. And so then by the time they're parents, they will know how to teach their kids and use it as a parent, and be able to calm themselves down and be able to regulate and be able to know what's going on with their body. Okay, so one of the things that I like to do is to talk to parents about, okay, so let's think about, your child, they're not a little adult. So what age are they and what are they able to do? Okay, so the next, let's go to the next one. Okay, so attachment. Attachment is important too. It kind of goes along with the brain development and being able to work on them being able to have a healthy attachment. And so helping parents be able to know, okay, being able to let your kid, explore, but also know that you're a safe person to come back to, because the kids want you to be safe. They want you to be the safe person. Sometimes it doesn't feel that way, because they'll be like, arguing with you or not want to do certain things. But really, when it comes down to it, they want you to be that safe person for them. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so here's some ways to be that safe person. So this is called co-regulation, and we're going to talk about self-regulation too. But co-regulation are things that parents do with kids. Being able to communicate feelings. One of the things I like to teach parents to do is to pay attention to what your kid is doing as far as like their emotions, like what kind of emotions they're showing, and being able to label it and see if the child will agree or disagree, because kids will let you know. And so if the child is like throwing a temper tantrum or upset about something, being able to say, well, it looks like that you're really mad at me right now, or you're really angry at me right now, or it looks like that you're mad that you didn't get what you wanted over here, or it looks like that you're frustrated that this happened. And then see if they say, and sometimes kids will, I do this with clients, and the kids will say, no, that's not what I'm feeling. I'm actually feeling sad, or I'm actually feeling disappointed because you told me we were going to do this, and then you changed the plans. I'm like, oh. And so one of the ways to be able to help kids communicate their feelings is to be able to observe their behaviors and be able to say, well, is this what you're feeling? And then they can tell if they can tell you what they're feeling. And sometimes they may say yes. And sometimes if they're not old enough, they may not be able to quite say it yet. But a lot of times, even little kids, 3 and 4 year olds, will be able to say, no, this is what I'm feeling. And And then be able from there to figure out, okay, so what's helping them to be able to share those feelings. Breathing together. Some of the activities I showed you earlier are things that can be done with kids to be able to breathe and teach them breathing. And then there gives you some other examples. The backstories, okay, I saw this and I thought about my grandmother because she didn't know this is what she was doing. But when I was a little girl and I go visit her, she used to love to, she had these like really long fingernails, and she used to love to like sing the song or the Itsy Bitsy Spider. And she would act it on my back. And I loved it. I loved it so much. But that's what she was doing. That's co-regulation. Because it'd make me start giggling and it would kind of tickle and it kind of feel good. And so I asked her, do it again, do it again. And so, I mean, I really like doing that. So if I was upset about something or something happened, a lot of times she would pick me up and she'd start doing that. And it would help me kind of, like I said, I start giggling because it kind of was ticklish. And so simple things like that, you know, music, there's other things that you can do that can help with co-regulation. Those are things you do with the child to help them to calm. Okay, now let's go to self-regulation. Okay, self-regulation is when you start trying to teach the child things they can do and be able to use. And then this kind of breaks it into 4 different categories. And breathing like I had earlier, them being creative, them finding different ways to express their feelings, things they can do to distract themselves, and physical activity. And I love that they put physical activity in here because I will a lot of times will talk with kids and parents about getting kids moving. You know, a lot of times they'll want to maybe do timeout or maybe put them somewhere to think about what's happened. And I'm like, maybe they should go shoot basketball, or maybe they should go run around the backyard or ride their bike. You know, those kind of things to help them calm down and help them regulate, because when your body gets to moving, those endorphins in the brain get to moving and you get to feeling better. So that's some self-regulation at home. Now there's also a chart for self-regulation at school. And I know that it's really tiny and hard to see, but I more put it on here, is the next slide. I more put it on here to show how many things that kids could do at school, how many different things that students could actually do at school to help them self-regulate. Because sometimes I'll work with kids on being able to calm down at school or being able to self-regulate. And they'll be like, well, I can't do these things at school. I can't do this at school. I couldn't do that at school. And when I found this, I thought, well, this is a really good example of how many things that ideas or different suggestions of things that kids could do. And so, and I've even had it before. I give a kid something like this and have them circle, you know, what works for you, because what works for one person might not work for another. And that's important for kids or for students to understand or figure out like what works for them when it comes to regulating their emotions and calming down. Okay, so okay. And then again, like I said earlier, I really believe physical activity, because when you get kids moving or you get them doing something, it helps them to be able to not just physically, but it gets those like endorphins in the brain released and feeling happier and feeling better. And so finding active things for them to do. Okay. And then, okay. So here are a few parent resources that I included. Parenting from the Inside Out and The Whole Brain Child are by the same author. And these are really good. But a lot of these, even these books, talk about parents being able to look at themselves and figuring out what it is about maybe something that your child does has triggered you, or what it is about something that's going on that you need to address and to work on so that you can be a better parent. And so that's the thing that I would like for you, I guess, to take away from this is, in order to be able to change storm clouds to blue skies, is being able to first look at yourself and say, what do I need to work on, or what can I do differently as a parent, as a teacher, to be able to be more tolerable, to increase that level of tolerance so that you are able to be able to handle the stresses that come your way. Because as I said before, they're there every day and we face them. And they're gonna be there because that's life. It has lots of stress and lots of stressors that we face. So being able to work towards knowing how to be able to do that for our children so that they have a safe, secure, loving, caring environment, whether it's at home or at school. So, all right. Well, this concludes the presentation. So
Well, thank you so much, Emily. Want to see if there was anything, Veronica, was there any questions in the chat that we might need to have Emily address?
I don't see any at this time.
Okay. Emily?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted, if someone needed to, I don't know if you have any contact information or anything that you might want to share. If you have anything that you want to, if someone has some question that they may want to ask you or refer someone to you. I know we have some counselors on, we have some people from community counseling on, and they may have some clients that they would like to refer to you or whatever. If you have any, how you can be contacted in the future.
Yes. Is there a way to add it on here, or do you want?
Emily, do you have it and put it in the chat box?
That's what I was gonna say. Can I put-
Yeah, if you put it in the chat box, Emily. I'm not sure if Veronica has it. She's been watching our chat box for us. While Emily's doing that, I had a question that I had. Let's see. There was when you had that slide up about the mirror neurons.
Yes.
And how the child like takes on whatever's going on with the parent because of the mirror neurons. Does that work the same way with adults? Or is that?
Yes. Yes, I like to use the example is if like you're with someone and they get a text message and their whole facial expression changes, like maybe something's wrong or something's happened, and you see how their face changes, and then you're like, what's wrong? What's wrong?
Mhm.
And so it happens with kids because my kids have done it before when I get like a message or something, I'll look at it and get serious, and they're like, is something wrong? What happened? And so they're aware that my facial expression changed. Again, like I said, if you're with somebody else and you notice like something change, then it definitely can, you can pay attention. Or if you're around somebody and they get like really angry,
Mhm.
then you might be like, are they mad at me? I feel they get mad at you or something. You're like, are they mad at me? What's going on here? So yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's usually with people you're connected to that you have like a connection to.
Right.
So like
Okay.
or like somebody that you're with that you're pretty, it doesn't happen quite as much with strangers as it does with like kids and parents.
Mhm. Okay. All right. I don't know. I'm the question person around here. I always want to know something. I always want to know.
Yeah.
There was one of the slides that you had. I think it was on the rainbow breathing.
Mhm.
You had the levels. I think was going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 for mindfulness. Does it make
Yes.
a difference if you start at the 5 and go to the 1, or do you start 1 and go to 5? Does it make a difference when you're on that rainbow?
It does. I think that mindfulness was the 5 to 1 is like a different technique. It's
Mhm.
a technique where you it's called grounding, where you look around and you identify like 5 things that you see, 4 things that you like hear, 3 things that you can like touch, 2 things you can smell. And it's a way to help kids that are upset to be able to calm down. And so I think it just was kind of on that slide, but it's
Yeah.
a great technique too to help kids that are upset, or even I use it with adults too. If you're in an environment and something like, and I've used it with teenagers in the classroom. If you're in the classroom and you feel like something's stressing you out and you want to run out of the classroom or you want to go to the bathroom, but the teacher won't let you, this is something you could do. And it goes back to that kind of distracts your mind away from what's maybe what you're stressed about, but it also helps you be aware of like what's your surroundings, and that kind of helps your body calm down.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Let's see. Did any of our other staff, did any of you have anything, any comments or anything before we conclude tonight? Okay. All right. Well, Emily, we really appreciate so much you doing this for us. It was very helpful, very enlightening, and I'm sure that we'll be able to use this with our clients, also with our children.
Yes.
My son's a little older now, but I still practice on him.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and so we really appreciate it. And again, I just want to say, if there is anyone that's on tonight that needs contact hours, we need to make sure that we have your full name and the participants, not just, let me check that to see what that looks like. Okay, so maybe I won't. All right, so maybe I won't do that. But if we don't have your full name in our participant list, then we will not be able to give you contact hours. So that's going to be very, very important. All right. All right. I think everyone really enjoyed it, Emily. And I always say until next time. I don't know why I do that, but until the next time, because hopefully it'll be another time, and we'll all be able to get together one more time. I think COVID has done that to us, because we had to be away from each other for so long. So until the next time, everyone, take care and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.